just jump in and start the podcast. And so this is Dave and Amboy, and we're sitting here with, well, Amboy, why don't you introduce our guest?
His real name is...
Talking to this end of the microphone.
His real name is Sapphire Adizes. We call him Sasa for short. I think it's a great name, Sapphire. It's a beautiful name. And I met Sapphire because I built his studio. As well as did a lot of work for his mom and his father and the houses he has here. And I've been dying to do a podcast with Sasa because, first of all, he's a character, and he's a prodigy, and he's making unbelievable music. And I think it's important for Carpinteria people to know that we got rock stars in our neighborhood.
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the things that I like, and let me just say, Sasa, it's nice to meet you, dude.
Nice to meet you.
And thanks for doing the podcast. You're like our second guest only. And here's the microphone here. Don't forget, it's a audio podcast and not a video podcast, so we need to hear you. Though you look lovely. You're a very handsome man. I don't know if I can still say that in the Me Too movement era or not, but And so it's nice to meet you, dude.
Nice to meet you.
And we're here with your housekeeper. Hello, what's your name? Elena. Hello, Helena. We're doing podcast radio. Nobody will listen. We have 0 listeners.
Okay, good.
Which keeps the pressure off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so we're up here. We're like at your house studio, and this is the moment I wish we were doing a video show. And as a quick side note, my wife gave me notes on the last episode of the podcast, and she was generally positive, but her main criticism was that it wasn't video. And so I'm like, so maybe in the future we can get a little video crew and we can videotape things, and that'll be great. And if so, I would love to do a show here because it should be a video show. We're here at your house studio, and it's in my neighborhood. I live over in Lagunitas, and it's in the foothills here, and it is just fabulous, right? And you've got the studio set up, and the dynamics of the studio are just amazing.
Yeah, give a description. It's like a barn. We converted a barn, put a kitchen in it, and we put 2 studio rooms with the right angles. It was engineered the right way with the right insulation, the drywall angles. And it took us a while to build it, but it's really what Sasa needed. I think this kind of jump-started his career a little bit. I think he was ready to...
Well, so Sasa, tell us what you're doing up here, what it's like to create here, and what it is that you're doing. Who are you, dude? Why are you on my podcast?
Oh, that's a question for you to answer, not necessarily me. But this is the Avocado Orchard is what I call the studio. We have all sorts of artists and writers and composers and singer-songwriters and instrumentalists and everybody, actors, all sorts of people, mostly coming from LA, kind of to get out of LA. So I guess I'm the one. Honestly, it shouldn't. Some people say kind of keep Carpinteria in small towns by themselves. Don't have these LA people. I'm totally the guilty one who's just bringing all these LA. I'm doing all the worst things. I feel bad being on the Carpinteria podcast, but I'm the one bringing these LA people. But it brings good energy. And
as long as they don't forget their checkbooks, they'll be.
Yeah, exactly. They're definitely supporting the local Albertsons and barbershops. Anyway, so they come, and we usually do 8-day, 9-day, 10-day, 11-day writing camps. And I produce a lot of the artists, and then the guest house over there they stay in, and then they'll bring all sorts of people. And
so it's a guest house and a studio.
Yeah, so wow, and it's designed around being creative and having musicians because usually musicians work in they'll work in 4, 5, 6 person teams. You have an engineer. Especially, let's say you have 2 studios set up. You have an engineer, you have a producer, you have another producer probably. Maybe the artist is rolling in, you have a writer. So like, you know, a lot of these big artists, they roll with like 4 or 5 other producers, and then I just happen to like be here, and I'm like, yo, I'll produce your record, and you know what I mean? And then I usually kind of end up being one of the producers. I'm hoping what's coming soon is that I'll be like, I have a lot of stuff that I got just as a producer, nothing to do with the studio, and hope I can be like, hey, so you know, tell like the labels that they can rent the studio as well, and then kind of do both. But on top of that, I have my own artist projects where I'm singing, and I just did a project called The Wild Boar that is me and like a full orchestra and a full choir, and it's on top of a mountain in Kotor, Montenegro, which is in the Mediterranean. And I recorded my life for like 10, 15 years and took the most important recordings, like my dad talking to me and him not knowing he's being recorded, telling me like, when I die, I will not die. I will always be with you, son. And then I basically took like the most important recordings and scored them like they were a documentary, wrote songs to the scores, and then those songs became independent scenes that I ordered into a movie that you hear with your mind, basically. So I arranged that for the orchestra and the choir and multiple screens using like all sorts of videos, like me as a newborn baby in the hospital. And then like I took all the recordings, a lot of them, which were my dad, and I had him basically read back what he said 6 years ago on stage in front of the orchestra. And he was like getting mad heated because, you know, it's a lot of stuff that he said that maybe he didn't mean or maybe he doesn't mean now. Right. Like he had to say in front of like, it was like, you know, 600, 500 people. And they were like, he was like, he's like, you know, you're really going to be at the age of 30 without anything, without a degree in music, with anything, without a degree from university. Look at all these friends and teachers that you. So he was like telling me like, you're putting all your eggs in one basket, you know, like you shouldn't be, you know, like you're going to become a failure basically. And then I'm like in front of the orchestra and the choir, and it's on top of this mountain at night in this amphitheater, and like it's super gnarly because he's literally saying like you're going to be a failure, and I'm like fucking. Like I almost set it up to take, like, you know, like I'm fighting against that on stage, but then he ends the show talking about how he opened his heart and how his like grandparents were in Treblinka, and that's when he closed his heart at 6 years old. And he didn't know how to love, and like, and so he's like, so it's a personal thing, but it's also a universal story, and it was so that's like I do my own artist stuff basically, and then if we got whoever is listening, December 6th in LA. December 6th,
2019, just so we make sure
19.
we know what year it is.
Airs and Sapphire, our debut concert. It's just me and a girl from Israel who sings. We have a band, and it's going to be at the Peppermint Club, December 6th at 7:30. Doors open in LA.
In LA,
Peppermint Club. We'll look it up, and
Airs and Sapphire.
Miraculously, some link will show up on the YouTube screen. That was actually something that I'm. Not to derail the subject at hand, because what you're talking about is fascinating, but I was thinking that one thing that we could be doing, and we have already been doing through the magic of time travel technology, was putting up more information like websites and things on YouTube. And so one of the things that my wife really was objecting to was just seeing the world's safest beach logo the entire time and stuff, and there was nothing else. So it was like no pictures of us or whatever, you know. It was kind of boring. So maybe it'll still be that picture, but I'm going to throw up some different links about what we're talking about, and that being one of them. I'm going to like see if we can't link up to that.
Yeah, 100%.
So we'll just do that through time travel, but it will already have happened by the time you hear this.
Okay, sick.
That's the beauty of doing a podcast.
Maybe you can even get it off now. It's thewildboar.com.
Oh, sorry, that was me causing the equipment to malfunction for just a second. Say that again.
It's thewildboar, BOAR.xyz, and then everything else, like Airs and Sapphire, you can just find at Sapphire Adizes, Adizes. Yeah.
And who's the artists that are coming by? Are you allowed to say?
Yeah, we had Leon Thomas. He has a record coming out soon that was recorded here. He signed A Kid in a Corner. He produced. He was on the TV show with Ariana Grande, and then he produced a lot of her early stuff, and then also some Post Malone stuff. I think he's pretty well-established producer, and then he has this artist project that he recorded pretty much entirely here.
Wow.
And he signed A Kid in a Corner, and the other producer, and and the head of his label is Alex the Kid, who did all the Imagine Dragons music. Love the Way You Lie, I think, with Rihanna. I'm pretty sure, and a few other things. So he came through, and so I'm stoked because I have some like credits on the album. I played saxophone and piano and did some producing stuff. So
What instruments do you play?
saxophone, clarinet, like tenor saxophone, alto saxophone, soprano saxophone, clarinet, piano, like all sorts of keyboards, accordion.
Wow.
And then mostly like the most important instrument to know today is like the computer, which is something that I spent the last 4 or 5 years. So like I'd say I'm like most proficient in saxophone and computer, basically, like how to use a computer to manipulate any sounds that you have in your mind.
Yeah.
That's like the most important instrument.
Yeah, one thing, slightly off subject, but one thing that I when I first got into radio, I got into radio and learned like what end of the microphone to talk into and like how magnetic tapes work, and maybe if you want to do editing, like where to put the razor blade and splice the tape together and stuff, and that kind of thing. And I had no idea, just no idea, that I was going to have to become like the master programmer. That all of this computer technology was going to come around, and audio editing was going to become a completely different thing than it was, just 20 years ago, And I had no idea. I would have probably.
That scares me.
I probably would have studied in school a little harder if I had known that I was going to have to be so computer dependent on things.
Well, that like in 10, 20 years, someone's gonna, like not even that, like maybe less. Like someone's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, all that proficiency that you learned in this program, sorry, dude. Like all that learning now, you have to start over."
I'm already experiencing.
And then there's a bunch of kids who already like I'm so scared of that.
I'm already experiencing that because like the first audio software audio workshop that I learned to like operate years and years ago. There's nobody that needs to know how to operate software audio Saw Plus or anything anymore. Nobody's using that program anymore. Everybody switched over to SoundForge, or they've switched over to Adobe Audition or whatever. And then in 10 years it'll be something else. And knowing how to be the master. Being the master of Adobe Audition is going to be a useless task.
Like I've been wanting to switch from Logic to Ableton for like 2 years, and I can't do it. I just like what I know how to do.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And it scares me because like that's the exact recipe for, like you have like the number one recipe for success, or like the number one recipe, the opposite for failure. For success would be like you're malleable to that market.
You have to be flexible. You have to be adaptable. Exactly.
And like I'm so like I don't want to move.
You can't get set in your ways, but
But I don't know. I guess like I don't know. This is like Prince had to learn how to use Pro Tools.
And there's certain things that you have to kind of, to be virtuoso, you have to kind of be set in your ways in a certain respect, So not everything isn't temporary, but unfortunately the technology is. I mean, like for example, I went to school and learned how to edit using Final Cut 7, right? And I didn't become the master, but I got pretty good at like editing video in Final Cut 7. And then they released Final Cut X or 10. They just completely revised the program, and it wasn't like an extension. There was no 8.
I remember that.
Yeah. There was no 8. There was no 9. They just jumped straight to 10, and it's completely radically different. And so everything that I learned how to do in 7 was now worth nothing. And I had to start again.
Did editors all like? It was like a big like revolution.
Well, there
like,
was
a bunch of editors that went to zero.
There was a lot of people who got off and got on to Sony or whatever instead, and got on Premiere or whatever. And some just learned it, and I never really got very good at it. A friend of mine made the transition and went from 7 to 10. And he sort of when they got all the patches installed and all the bugs worked out, because that's the problem with Apple, is they tend to release things that should have been beta tested a little bit more, and they let the public beta test for them. And so that's of course what they did with Final Cut. And but he said that once they got the bugs worked out, he loves it. Yeah. He loves it, but he had to make the transition. So whatever.
iMovie?
Well, that's actually part of the problem was that Apple took some of the characteristics that were in iMovie and tried to incorporate them into Final Cut, which is supposed to be their like professional software, and made it a little bit too. Well, and it made it a little too cheesy sometimes, whatever. But,
yeah, I
I
mean,
used to splice film. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
I used to splice film and put the sound on it. That's how old I am.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
How do you do that? I don't even know.
They take the film and you follow the pictures and they're numbered and
Ugh.
yeah.
Yeah, you gotta like mark them with a grease pencil and everything else.
That's so trippy.
I was
Yeah.
an assistant DP, and we used to have to pull the cartridges out of the film and put them in a dark room.
That's so
And it was
Yeah.
all digital.
Yeah.
And I saw the whole thing happen. It's fascinating. Your brother.
When
does
did it
film, right?
happen?
So what? The 80s. It's the
It
late,
wasn't that long ago. It was like it was like the 80s. People were still doing that, and then it stopped.
I think 89.
Yeah.
I remember, like, this is not even that long ago, and I guess people still kind of do it, but I remember going to the CVS or like the pharmacy, and you get those little cameras.
Right.
Oh yeah.
And you roll it
As a matter
back.
of fact, I was kind of thinking about this.
Is that
Just-
make me old? Like
Well,
I remember. Is that do people still do that? No,
I
right?
don't
Everyone
think
uses
they do,
iPhones.
but I think you could probably still find them at CVS.
But
They must still have them.
They're like click. and
I
then
was
you
thinking
roll
about
it
this the
back.
other day. How I
I
did,
love
like,
those things.
I
If you
used
didn't
to do
know
like
what you
the
took.
original selfie because I could remember with those phones, with those disposable 35mm phones, going to like Disneyland or whatever, and taking selfie pictures with those phones, and they're just total selfie.
Yeah.
But you just had to hope that it looked good because
That-
you were developing
dude,
it, whether it looked good or not.
There was something romantic about the fact that
Yeah.
like, we would go out at night and like I was a little kid. I must have been 5 or 6, but I remember like there's something like cool about the fact that you go out at night. You're gonna have this whole night. You're gonna take these pictures, and you're gonna have no idea how the pictures reflect the
Yeah.
night. And you're like,
fun,
I wonder what it's good, and then you all get excited, and then you get to go and you get to go to the CVS or whatever it was, and you give them the camera, and then they give you the pictures, and then there's a moment when you look, that is dead forever now.
Right.
It's
Nobody will
gone.
ever experience
Nobody will.
Yeah.
Nobody's going. I wonder what it. Like nope. Like I guess
That's
why-
true, and that's kind of a funny plot
Polaroids.
point somehow. But yeah, it's like kids will never know what that is.
They'll just
Right.
put the Polaroid effect on their phone, like,
the Polaroid effect. Right. Yeah.
and like some people listen to vinyl, but it's mostly just like music. Like I guess vinyl has a comeback. But
Well,
really?
I don't know. They had a statistic come out not too long ago, maybe a couple of weeks ago, how vinyl sales had finally, for the first time since 1980, whatever, surpassed CDs. That vinyl was bigger than CDs,
But nowhere near streaming.
And they were talking about it like it was a big thing, like somehow vinyl was back or whatever. And I was thinking, well, no, that's more commentary on how few CDs they're selling nowadays. Not so much how much vinyl they're selling. I mean, yeah, it's still popular. People will
Vinyl's a
still
good
like
tool
it.
for you, isn't it? Don't you like it because you can work with it, right?
Well,
most of my friends who have vinyl and they'll use it to record samples.
yeah.
And collect samples that otherwise you could not find. Like some weird,
Right.
I found like in Mexico this like record that would only be released in Mexico
Yeah.
on vinyl.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
I brought like 5 of those or 10 of those back to my roommate Dante, and he like recorded them. And then now he has a digital file of them,
Right,
but at the
right.
highest quality because he's ripping it off vinyl.
Right.
And it's
Right.
of the highest quality. It's this spectacular like analog feel. And now he has like some weird like whatever is, I don't even know what it is.
Right.
But then he samples that, and then that becomes a hip hop
Right.
record, and then that gets on a Kanye album, and then it's like you had something that no one else had,
It's fascinating how this business is.
But most people don't do that. Most people just go on to Splice or like whatever, and they just drag stuff. And if they're gonna do samples, they'll probably just buy it off iTunes. I don't know, but I mean, honestly, I don't fuck with samples because I spent so much time. I'll do it sometimes, but
Yeah.
I spent so much time learning how to play instruments that it's kind of like why would I sample, but like my problem is not that I don't have enough musical ideas, is I have too many to put beats to. So it's like but I'll sample a little bit, or I'll try to like. But there's some people who are masters of sampling. Like if you look at Kanye, he's the best.
Yeah.
He's probably the best sampler of the last like 10 years.
Were you working with him?
Yeah, I was. Well, I was in Chicago, and I just got invited to go.
Now he's got a religion.
Yeah. Well, I just got invited to like engineer for him, and then they told me to stay and produce and write and like start making beats. But then he like, I don't know. It was such a weird week, dude. It was super weird. But like, it was the same week that he was talking with Trump and having like a bipolar.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah, it was that same week.
Really?
It was like
Having
a
a rough
week.
one,
It was like
huh?
a week or
He
a
was
week
having a-
after that or something. And I just kind of walked into some like
Weird stuff, huh?
not weird. I was just like not just like psychologically,
Right.
mentally. I was like just a kid. You know what I mean? Like I hadn't ever been in a situation like that.
How old are
before.
you?
I'm 25. Yeah.
That's my kids are about 10 years older than you are. My God.
Yeah. But
He's amazing. He's amazing kid. He grew up around his parents, and his parents are just amazing intellectual people, and he's got no choice. So I just like hanging out with him because the stuff rubs off, and his family knows. Like I just like hanging out so that some of the smartness rubs off on me.
Right. Well, so tell me about this place. Like, we're set up here. You got you got keyboards. You got an organ sitting right here. You're like hanging out. You've got a recording studio. You got rock stars coming, hanging out. Doing whatever they're doing. What is it that you're doing back here? I mean, do you have like a what's your business model? What is it that you want to do when you grow up? Yeah, I'm sorry to sound condescending. Oh my God,
it's all good.
I am my grandpa. My God, but seriously, yeah. What's the game plan? What are you doing here?
Well, I mean, first, you can have the studio rental with this in the guest house, and that's I don't even have to be here for that.
Right.
So
you're recording a lot in I remember you were recording in LA a lot.
yeah, but I've gotten
Right.
I have one EP that has 100 million plays on Spotify.
Wow.
That I produced and co-wrote, and
Is that with the Israeli girl?
No, that's with this artist named Barhana.
Uh-huh.
Like we made in New York together.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
that
You were surfing in New York too, right? I have to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah,
Tell me
dude.
about surfing
in
New
the
York.
winter.
Tell me about that.
In the fucking winter.
Yeah.
Oh, am I allowed to curse?
It's all right.
Yeah,
Who
yeah.
cares? This is a podcast for Christ's sake.
Okay.
Whatever.
All right. Cool.
I think I fucking do.
I love it when everyone curses after someone asks. Like, yeah, fuck. All right. Yeah, dude. I was surfing in the winter. I actually have my New York winter wetsuit in my car still. I use it now because my 4.3 got ripped. But you run out there and it's total snow on the ground, like
Jesus
all on the beach.
Fuck that.
And there's ice everywhere,
Yeah.
and it's like a blizzard. It might be snowing when it's happening because that's when the waves come. And then you're down to your fucking underwear, barefoot in the snow because there's no car. You're not driving a car. You're taking the subway, and then so you have to walk like 6 miles from the subway to in the middle of the fucking winter, and then you get to this beach, and then you go down into your fucking.
Right.
And sometimes it was so cold that I just changed in Subway, not the Subway, in Subway the sandwich shop, the one fucking sandwich shop that was within a 10-mile radius of that stupid beach, dude. Because everything else would be closed,
and they're
like,
always
except for Dunkin'
open.
Donuts, which didn't have a bathroom. So I used to just get coffee and bring the coffee with me. So you change on the beach, you're down to your underwear in the snow.
Yeah.
And then you put on a fucking wetsuit and 7mm booties and 7mm gloves, bro. It's literally
Like the Michelin blimp, right?
yeah. And then you got a hoodie, and then you put fucking what's it called, Vaseline on your face because if any skin is exposed to the water.
Yeah.
You're toast, so you put Vaseline on your eyes, and then you have a wetsuit covering up to above your nose, and then now you're like hoppity, and most people are in 654 wetsuits.
Jeez.
I was in a 434, but it was the special design wetsuit for like Antarctica,
Wow.
basically scuba diving.
Yeah.
Then you paddle out. The first duck dive,
Yeah.
dude, it's like a brain freeze from hell, bro. It's a
I was
brain.
complaining about
It's like,
recon. I
dude,
could only
it's-
imagine.
There's ice in the water, dude. And then some people by their third duck dive, if it's a big day and you
Yeah.
didn't time you did too many duck dives, they
Yeah.
just black
Oh,
out,
no,
black
thank
out in the
you.
water and drown. Bro. Seriously,
Yeah.
because their heads just get too cold.
Yeah.
But dude, if you make it to the outside,
Yeah.
first of all, the gear these days is so good that you're
Uh-huh.
basically in board shorts, like if once you're sitting on your board comfortable.
Right.
But you know your head still hurts, and it's scary. There's something scary about it, you know.
How's the water? Is it dirty with all those New York?
Yeah, it's like black, dude.
Right.
It's I don't know.
Cigarettes.
I don't.
Syringes and stuff.
You
or
know,
what?
like there's spots that it's really bad, but like where I went, it wasn't too bad. It's just
How's the shape?
it's weird because
the
dude.
shape?
Okay, so listen to this. Once you get out there,
Yeah.
you're basically surfing fucking prime Hawaii waves with nobody. You're by
Wow.
yourself. It's some of the dude. Let me find a picture for you, dude. Sometimes it's a series of jetties, and sometimes
So it's like a beach break.
it's a beach break, but
Uh-huh.
because of the jetties and the swell direction it usually gets, it's
Uh-huh.
usually just a perfect left, like a perfect barreling left with this inside section, and people are just getting pitted one after another
Wow.
in the fall,
New
and then
York.
in the spring and summer sometimes there's a hurricane swell, but in the winter, bro, it's fucking like it's like Piper. It's not like dude. I gotta find sometimes. Here, maybe use your phone. Sometimes, bro. Sometimes the waves get so
Got to
thick.
get the right phone for the right pictures.
The
for
waves get
podcast.
so thick. These lefts get so thick that it looks like a baby chopu or something.
Really?
Like such thick, and like the paddle out is nothing because it's basically it's like a shore break basically. So you literally just lie on your board and the rib takes you straight to in front of the first rock. And most people are like. They're
What's the
hopping
name of the
over the
point?
Rockaway. I
Rockaway?
used to surf 66th.
What,
Yeah,
66 is that the exit
Yeah.
off the subway?
yeah. That's the funniest thing is it's kind of ghetto, dude. It's not.
It's
It
pretty ghetto.
used to be ghetto,
Yeah.
but like now it's getting kind of it's
Became
at the
trendy?
early. No, it's the early when I was there in 2012. It was the early signs of fucking not transformation gentrification. It was the early gentrification signs. You know, they were building the fucking like houses where all the like white people were about to show up.
Right.
But like at the same time, you'd see these kids like running by and a cop coming by and like, what happened? He's like, oh, he just shot somebody. He just shot somebody, and I'm sitting there freezing my ass off, like watching this kid get like, oh, he just shot. But then you surf it, dude. Dude, it's some of the most. It taught me how to surf. Seriously,
Really?
I grew up in California, and I surfed here until I was like 14. Then I went to Michigan and would only surf in the summer. So I definitely had a growth thing. But like 18, I was surfing here a little bit, but then I started 19. I started surfing fucking Rockaway every day, like 3 times a week.
What
just
a
got
workout. Just that
dude,
suit.
dude. When I was
Such
making
dedication.
Brahana, the EP that had 100 million plays, because
Yeah.
he had a 9 to 5 job as not more. He had like a 2 to 7, 2 to 8 job because he was a sushi chef. And at 9 o'clock, he would come in to start working on sessions. He claims I fucking wanted it that late, but you know, he also had a job because I'm sure he could have done 6 a.m. But I was like, let's start at 9. So we started at 9, and we'd work until 5 in the morning. Then I'd be like, I gotta run, no sleep, jump in, grab my wetsuit, meet the guys from Vice magazine. Early, like not early days of Vice, but like it was like, you know,
Yeah,
it's
it
not
was
now.
early days,
It wasn't.
right?
It was 2011, 2012.
yeah.
Like some of those guys. Vice was like already super established, but now it's like super established.
Right.
Anyway, so I had one friend who worked there, and we would go in a van at 5 in the fucking morning all the way to Rockaway, and then I'd surf usually from like 6:30 until like 12. Get on the subway, and at 1 p.m., dude, I'd be so tired. I'd be
Crashed
dead
2
tired.
days, huh?
I could barely make it holding my surfboard from the subway, the 15 blocks to my house.
God.
I was just like, Dude, sometimes I needed food so bad. I was so hungry, but I was too tired. And just grab food, just eat half the hamburger, and pass the fuck out in my bed, dude, until about 8:30, and then he would come and we'd do it again, and we'd fuck. If there was swell, dude, that was my schedule, bro. And it was sometimes scary because dude, search. Let me find you this video. You're gonna flip, dude. New York is some of the. It's better. I would say Rockaway is better than like most of the breaks here. And if you're looking for advanced shortboard, fucking barreling, aggressive waves, and it gets big there, dude. It gets big. I once saw the surf line and it said estimated size. It was like during a hurricane. Rockaway was like 60 feet. Like,
No way.
Yeah, because it was like obviously no one's surfing it that big.
I didn't know.
But like during Hurricane Sandy, people were out there like a week later or so, a week earlier, or whatever it was. Here, wait, let me find this.
My extent of Rockaway is listening to the Ramones. So there you go.
Right.
You know, that's it.
Yeah, but there's literally like there's some like projects like right there, like where I was surfing, like down the thing, and it's in the middle of the winter, and nobody is at the beach. Like that's what's weird about New York. You show up in the summer sometimes, and like a person will tell you to get out of the leave the beach.
Really?
Yeah, that doesn't happen in California.
Weird. Yeah, fuck.
They have hours where it's illegal to be on the beach, and it's fucking
Really?
enforced. It's enforced.
No kidding.
Like it's illegal to be in the water and shit. Like, and it's super weird.
Really?
Like, I almost am in disbelief saying it because we get so used to California.
Yeah, but you lived it.
But like, there's like time. You know, it's weirder there. It's weird. The beach isn't like It's like it's weird. I don't know what
California.
New Jersey,
We own. Nobody owns the beach. We like for us in California, we all own the beach. You know, you can't keep us from the beach.
Yeah, I remember the thing with Hope Ranches happened, right? That.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like you can't impede the public's access to the beach. You can't own the beach. That's just the rule. Sorry.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep.
Is this it?
Well, yeah. So.
Wait, I think I found it. Oh my god.
Okay, so
this is some fucking footage from Rockaway.
we're gonna watch this video apparently on the podcast, and you know, it's just a terribly interesting video that the naked people.
Oh, the
are
people
doing their thing, and
maybe they can take our reactions though. Just
know,
look at the first waves. Just they can take our reaction. If for people who are watching, just search NYC Blizzard. Search NYC Blizzard.
people
surfing New York
in the
City.
blizzard.
Yeah,
New
we can
York.
just describe what we're seeing here. Okay, so look, you see that's the point.
see,
Look at
that's-
that wave, bro.
That's like
And you're
that's
all by yourself.
the people on
You're
people on
completely
the
by
West
yourself.
Coast don't need to surf in a snowstorm.
And it barrels. Like,
So
that's not
they
even that
wouldn't
barely
bother.
over
But people on the East
Look at that.
Coast apparently really
Exactly,
feel the need
that's
to
what I'm saying.
surf
It's
when
like
it's
zoom out,
snowing
but-
outside.
and it's snowing outside.
Why?
And you're by yourself.
Well,
completely
because
by
they
yourself.
can. I don't know. Okay. Well, so much for that.
Isn't that
Well,
crazy?
So I wanted to also talk about before we get sidetracked about your family,
Sure.
your dad, what your dad does, what your brother does, what. I like to get people.
So, well, it's a show about Carpinteria. So now you guys live here in Carpinteria.
Yeah.
Have you lived here for how long?
We've lived in Carpinteria, my family, like 5 or 6 years. No, maybe more.
okay.
7 years. We've had the property here for a long time, and the office has been here for a long time, like 20 years, 25 years. But we moved from Montecito to here, so.
Okay, right. So how do you like Carpinteria?
I
Is it
love
a chill little
Carpinteria.
place or what?
Yeah, it's really, really dope. It's nothing like Montecito, and it's nothing like Santa Barbara, and it's nothing like Goleta.
It's its own
like,
little world, right?
It's its own.
That's what I love
It's
about
like almost like
Carpinteria.
a perfect small town in a lot of
Right?
ways. Like it's like a TV show, Baywatch
Right.
kind of fucking perfect
Well, I mean,
small town.
I can't help but think that. Of course,
I hope
this
it never
is,
changes.
This is
kind of
Padaro.
feeling.
It's not exactly Linden Avenue, but you know there are so many like celebrities with all the money in the world that have bought houses along Padaro. You know, there's George Lucas. There's Ellen and Portia just sold their house down there.
I've seen them at Crush Cakes before.
Yeah. You know,
They're
it's like,
down here.
yeah, exactly. You know, I see George around town and stuff, and see him at the breakfast or whatever. And you know, there's a reason that they're here, as opposed to somewhere else. You know,
Right.
I mean, it's because it's close to L.A.
It's a great place for your studio.
Yeah, I'm just waiting. Like, we'll see if it. People say that Carpinteria might get like super like hippified. I'm a little nervous about it.
We actually are in danger of that.
We're in danger, right, of this becoming like some like Soho kind of like vibe, right?
Well, you got lynda.com and who else down here?
Well, Linda actually was sold to LinkedIn.
That's right.
Which is even bigger than Linda. So LinkedIn is huge.
Right here, yeah.
When did that happen?
Well, no, years
No, but
ago.
like, do you think it could become like all like yoga? Well, I guess we already have a lot of yoga, but you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Like fucking like
hipsters and
just like.
But it's
it should be
expensive.
Like what's it called? Venice.
Yeah.
That spot in Venice, Abbot Kinney.
Right.
Like, is that what Carpinteria Avenue is about to be like?
How
Like,
can
could
they
that
afford
happen?
that? How could those people afford it? The rent?
I hope not.
Everybody wants Carpinteria to maintain its small
Exactly,
town
me too.
feel.
But
you know?
have you ever heard that? My Topaz said
totally.
that.
I mean, it's like because we run the risk of like with all these high tech companies out here by Mark Avenue and stuff, or where LinkedIn is and stuff, or Procore. Procore is doing really, really well. They're like a major player in their industry, and they're here in Carpinteria.
Amazing.
You know, I mean, we had KFC here for a long time, and they were a big player. Of course, they moved out of town, but you know, so yeah, we're like people know Carpinteria on the world stage. You know, I think so. Yeah, we run the risk of becoming a little too cool for school. I think.
I hope not. I like the small
hope
town
not, too.
vibe. The barbershops and like you know and the fucking like kind of that's like mom and pop feel, like even those like little restaurants that you know.
Yeah, well,
shout out Siam Elephant.
Yeah, I love them. Actually.
I go, dude. I probably should be I have like an investment in their restaurant at this point. But bro, I probably fund like the equality of like
the Tom Cost soup is
dude,
like the best, man.
You could probably fill this whole entire studio up with the amount of Tom Cost I've got eaten. Dude, Siam Elephant is just the spot.
Yeah. Well, like last
we're not sponsored by Siam
Last
Elephant.
night, my wife and I went and we got like dinner and some cocktails at Corkscrew Cellar. And then we walked down the street and went to the Palms and saw friends of ours, had a couple of cocktails or whatever at the Palms, and it was just such a great little. And it was Saturday night, and it was just chill. It was a Saturday night in Carpinteria, I just love it.
Right.
I love it.
Right.
I love it here.
Absolutely.
And if
The Palms is the spot, dude.
Well, that's where
my girlfriend hates the Palms.
Really?
She hates the Palms.
It's
It's always because we show up there and then I'm just like I'm not with her the whole time. I'm like cooking. I'm like making everything, like bringing the potatoes. I'm like that. I grew up at that place, dude.
Yeah.
I used to go there like once a week as a kid because we didn't live here.
We
We didn't live here, but my uncle lived here and my dad's office was here, so we would go to the Palms and kind of have barbecues here and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I grew up going there. Like, it was my favorite spot. I hope
They'll
they
be
used
there
to be.
forever.
But
They'll be
how
there
old?
forever.
They're like the oldest building in Carpinteria.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, they were a
1915
before
or
they were a restaurant, but they've been around
1915?
like 100 years or whatever.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Wow, that's amazing.
I mean, I like you could just. I bet you could show up there with like a gold piece, like old Western style. Like,
Right.
No, we should do a
Give me
show.
a-
We should do a show from the Palms one of these days, actually. And, like, we should have Todd or whatever on the show. Tell us the history of the Palms because
yeah, I don't know what the
crazy.
history is, but it's
Yeah,
really
it's
like an
crazy.
you have like an old West feel when you go.
It does actually have like a old West vibe. You can totally imagine someone like parking their horse outside.
Exactly,
and
with the
muzzling-
gold coin.
Yeah, muzzling up
Give
to
me
the
a
bar.
room, a woman, a horse, some oats from a horse.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because even after all these years, I'll mention to somebody that I live in Carpinteria, and it'll be somebody who hasn't been here even for years, and they'll go, "Oh, the Palms!" Like this, they'll always
what's
know
up
the
with
Palms. Everybody associates Carpinteria and the Palms.
Why is that? How
I
are
don't
they
know.
so
well,
famous?
it just shows how closely identified it is with the town itself
I would love to if I have a time
because
machine.
it never changes.
If I would love if I had a time machine to like show up at the Palms within like the first year of their opening, like on a horse. Like take a horse from LA. Is that I don't. Am I getting my time periods
all
wrong?
the ghosts that run around the palms.
Yes, you
Imagine
know
all
that
the dead people that are
you
running
know that the rooms are still there, and that's where they house the workers of the palms.
Wow, Ghost Town City, huh? I'm gonna go there and play with the Ouija board.
The palms,
right? Have dinner and play with the Ouija board. I think that's the next
And
thing.
you know they used to have arcade games, and they took it out. I've only noticed that a couple of years ago. They used
Really?
To have, they used to have pinball.
Yeah.
Right where you walked in, across from where the band was.
Uh-huh.
They used to have pinball machines. As a little kid, I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
And then they took it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess they needed more room for drunks, I guess, to hang
So,
out.
I mean, that's such a spot, bro. I love
Well,
that
you
spot.
know,
The
we've
palms.
been going on for a long time here, and I can't think of a better place to actually end our third inaugural episode of
How long
the
were we
World's
going?
Safest podcast than
Oh,
talking
no way.
about the palms.
Flew by.
And yeah, we were on for a long. I can't read 40-something minutes.
Cool.
So that's pretty good. So okay, so it was another podcast. So another successful edition of the podcast. So it's David Amboy and Sasa. What was your last name? Sasa.
Adizes, Adizes.
And we've put your like websites and your LinkedIn and your Social Security number and all that stuff up.
The Wild Boar.
WildBoar.
.xyz.
Oh, and that's one thing that we were going to talk about that we didn't actually wind up talking about. The whole damn show was the fact that you were going to do like a theme song for us.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So I
what
tell
do
you
want
what
it
we'll
to be
do.
like?
We'll
What do you
just
want it
like
to be like?
we'll like do this off the air, right? And so actually, and once again, to time travel in radio land, we listened to your theme song at the beginning of the show, and no one really noticed. And so we'll play it again as we leave the show. So and then you can really notice that it's the theme song that you wrote. And
I don't remember what I don't.
you did.
I don't remember what I say.
You did a really good job, by the way. But anyways, listen, thanks for the theme song. Thanks for being our second guest on our third episode. And so let's just wrap it up. So it's a podcast, and we'll be back next time we decide to do another one.